Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another February theme month, and I'm going to be reviewing, in my opinion, one of the best romantic comedies or just romantic films of all time. By far, one of my favorites, The Princess Bride. Oh my god! And man, this is you talk about a classic. Oh my god, I love this film. Everybody involved did their thing. Uh, the set was, like these practical sets. Is done almost like a stage play. Excuse me. So yeah, everything about this is like top notch, man. I mean, yeah, it's cheesy in parts, but it's just that it adds to the charm. Uh, and of course, it's been parodied a lot more recently when it was promoting the PG-13 version of Deadpool 2 called Once Upon a Deadpool. They even, like, I still remember it was so freaking funny and so clever. I mean, Deadpool, yeah, right around knows how to market, a product, man. It is so genius. Where he actually recreated the whole opening scene with Fred Savage, kidnaps the man, ties him to the bed, and forces him to listen to him as he's reading Once Upon a Deadpool. It was so funny, man. Oh yeah, I freaking love this film. Uh, so it's directed by Rob Reiner, who, when he was a kid, was read a book, a book based off The Princess Bride. Uh, which it took me a long time to even realize this was based off an actual book. But uh, it was also like I said, it stars Fred Savage as the grandson, which you never get their actual names. It's kind of funny. It's like you just have the grandson, then the grandpa, played by Peter Falk, who is the narrator, as well. It's like this whole framing device, and you got Betsy Brantley as the mother. I thought it was wild that you never actually get like their actual names. It's very wild. You got Carrie Elways, who, this is the first movie I've ever seen Carrie Elways in anything. I see him in other stuff here and there after the fact, but as a kid, this is my first introduction of the actor, who also had read the Princess Bride book when he was a kid and always viewed himself as Wesley. And it blew his mind how, like, that he never thought in a million years he would play the actual character that he read about. Uh, he plays Wesley, aka the Dread Pirate Robert Wright as Princess Buttercup, Mandy Patinkin as Inigo Montoya, Chris Sheridan as Prince Humperdinck, Christopher Guest as Count Tyrone Rugen, Wallace Shawn as Benzini, Andre the Giant, R.I.P. Andre the Giant, plays the Fezzik, Peter Cook as the clergyman, Kara Kane as Valerie, and Billy Crystal as Miracle Max, her husband. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, the people involved in this, it's like these are it's not. I mean, at the time, you wouldn't have viewed this as a star-studded cast, because Carrie Airways was just pretty much like doing like stage plays and stuff like that at the time. But aside from maybe like Billy Crystal and and Carol Kane. The others probably had like, you know, little things here and there prior to this, but you know, you recognize them when you see other projects. But anyway, I've been wanting to talk about this for a little over a year now, but I couldn't fit it in any place, so I put it in my list of February themed movies to review. Excuse me, I got like a holes in my mouth, so that way, take care of the my throat. So anyway, the movie begins, and I love this because it's like clearly set in Chicago because you got this, you know, I won't say stereotypical, but clearly like there's like a boys' room. You got all these like Chicago sports memorabilia all over the place. It's playing a classic Super Nintendo, baseball game. It's like just I immediately think of all times I played my Super Nintendo as a little kid. Uh, and the boy is homesick, and his you know uh uh grandson's uh grandfather comes over to like read to him, give him like a present, and of course it's a book. Now, growing up, of course, like I grew up in the 90s, but I imagine like how many children, especially a kid of the grandson's age and younger, would even remotely appreciate getting a book as a present. I mean, it just I don't know. It's like unless you know the kid is like a avid reader, you don't take like you don't waste your money on buying like a book that the kid probably 9 times out of 10 not going to appreciate. That's the thing I want to point out right off the bat. Sometimes you might luck out and the kid might actually enjoy the book, but like I said, 9 times out of 10, unless that kid is like an avid reader, you don't take a chance on wasting money on a book that the kid probably not gonna crack open. Now, like the grandson, I remember one of the extended relatives of my stepmother's side of the family, the guy who gave me a book with at least 4 or 5 story Edgar Allan Poe stories inside, like Telltale Heart, Casa Amontalo, the things of that sort. Now, of course, I was like a book, whatever, like that. But I checked it out and I loved it, especially Telltale Heart. I think Telltale Heart is one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe stories. Well, it's kind of tied with The Raven, but yeah, it became like Edgar Allan Poe became like my favorite authors. Yeah, I just loved his work. Of course, there's Charles Dickens. I love like most of his work, but I have my select favorite books. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, which by the way, let's try to get this video to 100 likes. It helped me out with the algorithm and everything like that. Follow me in the links in the description, especially my Patreon, patreon.com/talkingofcarl. So that way you can choose from the tier list of what things you want for me to review if you have like a special idea. But leave a comment below. Let me know what is your favorite book that you remember enjoying as a kid. It's like became like your all-time favorite book, because Alice in Wonderland is my is a favorite. At least it's, like at least a handful of Edgar Allan Poe stories. Uh, uh, then you got uh, A Christmas Carol, another of my favorites. At least off the top of my head, those are like my favorite stories that I grew up reading a lot. Um, so the grandfather trying to, just want to read to his son because he's homesick and everything like that. Not sure how many grandparents read to their kids just to make them feel better. It's like, give them some soup and some well-deserved rest and some tea, and they'll be right as rain. But of course, it's just a nice little family moment. So he presents the kid with the Princess Bride story, and of course, like I said, Rob Reiner's father read him this story when he was a kid, so it's kind of like he put in that kind of framing device set based off of what he experienced as a kid. So, the kid was a little hesitant because it's like, oh, this is not gonna be one of those kissing kind of stories, is it? It's like, is there any sports in it? I was like, oh, are you kidding me? It's like fencing. There's like revenge. Adventure, all this other stuff. Now, I think it was 2017. It was right before John Wick 2 was coming out, where I went to this pop-up theme bar, based like a Harry Potter themed bar, that I ran to a couple of ladies on the way to the same bar. I was walking past I guess it's like a fencing class. It was like we was literally seeing like right through the window, and because I haven't thought about this woman in years prior to that moment, and we see it and we instantly thought of, wow, because I put out like, wow, that reminds me of Princess Bride. And it's like, and it's like, oh my god, yeah. It's like, because I freaking love that freaking movie, and it's like, oh god, we'll get into the banter between these characters. It's just like great dialogue. Uh, and probably the most quotable films is literally got to be in at least top 40 or 30 most quotable films ever. But it's just like, it's ingrained in us as kids growing up, because obviously most of us haven't gone to the theater to see this because we was either have not been born yet or were babies at the time. Because I remember watching this on VHS a lot as a kid, because this movie came out on September 25, 1987. So yeah, definitely like a year before I was born. I was probably still in my mother's womb at the time, or at least haven't been conceived yet. That's how long ago it was. So, uh, the grandfather starts telling a story about this farm boy named Wesley, and his thing has never been fully explained, but Princess Buttercup apparently wasn't initially any kind of princess or royalty of a sort, but I guess we never know about her parents. But I guess you know, her family was well enough to have a farm boy on hand. I was like, okay, what's your status in this life? Because clearly it's based around like the medieval times, or I won't say Renaissance, but it's like at least around like medieval times, obviously. But it's like, you look like a peasant girl, and you probably the same social standing as Wesley. So it's kind of like, okay, how do you afford to have like a farm boy? Because if you are maybe royalty of some sort, doesn't necessarily have to be king or queen, but of some stature, yeah, I can definitely see you having some kind of farm boy, or at the very least some kind of knight or something like that. Sure, you probably have like a farm boy. But anyway, oh, it just came to mind. I just thought it would be kind of funny now, speaking about the whole farm boy situation. I saw this on TMZ a long while ago, where uh, Prince Harry, was it Harry and Meghan? Yeah, Prince Harry. He, when he was a teenager, he lost his virginity to a farm girl. Uh, uh, that he befriended, back in the day. It's like, man, that's straight out some kind of fairy tale kind of thing. It's just kind of weird that they just haven't like took it seriously. But it's just like, it's kind of funny. It's like, got a thing with his farm girl, and got uh this woman who has like a thing for this farm boy. And of course, Cary Elwes is like a very handsome dude. Uh and here's the start of the quotable stuff. He always responds to her after she makes a request, like, farm boy, I would like my saddle polished. I want to be able to see my face in it by tomorrow. As you wish. And Grandpa states that every time he says, as you wish, what he really means, I love you. And of course, the romance between these two, like, really it's palpable. And of course, it's like he says, as you wish, at least 7, 8 times. Because Honest Trailers did like a joke trailer about this years ago, and they point out about the quotes in this film. It's not like they're necessarily good quotes, they just repeat it a lot to the point where we can't help but think about it. My favorite is well, we'll get to it in a second, but like, I have a particular favorite quote from this movie, but we'll get to it. And one of my favorite scenes from this entire film. But anyway, uh, they grew to love each other immensely, but because he's a farm boy, he couldn't afford to have like a at least a decent wedding and everything like that, and to live a life together. So he decides to travel on a ship, trying to earn some money and then come back. But after some time, Buttercup later finds out that the ship that Wesley was on got raided by pirates, and he was presumed dead. He later found out about this infamous pirate, Dread Pirate Roberts, and so she assumed that he killed her Wesley. So she just like refused to love again. She was just a hollow, mess. It's like, void of, feeling much. Then, not too soon after, Prince Humperdinck happened upon her, and then chose her as his soon to be bride to be. Then one day while she was going on her daily ride for some exercise, she gets kidnapped by these 3 thieves, Vizzini, Fezzik, and Montoya. And you find out that Vizzini was hired to kidnap her, and then later kill her to spark a war between Humperdinck's kingdom and the kingdom of Golda. Golder. What do you mean? Golder. And and Vizzini is like just this, you know, clearly like it's a joke at this point. But it's this Napoleon complex because the shorter he is, got the louder he got to be. Uh, and clearly, like, you know, is bossing and these people around so hard. And and then he constantly says, "Inconceivable." And it's like, I love the response of Montoya at one point when, after like it was like the fourth or fifth time he said that, and he just like, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I always respond to people who constantly use a particular word, and I usually retort with them like, you keep saying that. I don't think it means what you think it means. It's like, it gets stuck in your head, and it's like you can't help but quote that. It's like, oh my god, it's like, this is one of them. That's not my favorite quote. That's one of them. But it's like, you know, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Oh my god, it was really good. But anyway, they notice that they're being followed by another ship. Vizzini is like, you know, brushing it off until the next day when it happened. You know, they're going towards the it was like the Cliff of Insanity or something like that. What is it? Yeah, Cliffs of Insanity. Yeah. The Cliffs of Insanity, and they climb a rope to the top, and they see like the masked man in black following them, and so Vizzini tells Montoya to, you know, wait till he gets to the top. I mean, if he gets to the top, kill him. But he falls beforehand, fine. But he cannot come after, you know, our prize. And the banter between these characters are so well, you know, written, where it's just like super polite most of the time. And Montoya is like, it was leaning over the cliff and say like, you know, are you gonna be down there long? And it's, you know, just you know, it's clearly it's Wesley, so I'm not gonna beat around the bush on that one, you know. But the masked man just like, it's not as easy as it looks. So I appreciate if you like, don't distract me. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Uh, it's, but like in Montoya's, you know, it's like it doesn't like waiting. So it's like, hey, like, it's like, you know, is any way you can speed this along? You know, masked man is like, if you're in such a rush, it would help if you just toss down a rope. Uh, but it's like, you know, you can't fully trust him because he might, you know, try to just immediately, you know, attack him when he's like defenseless. But Montoya's like, you know, I give you my word, you will reach to the top. So he climbs up, and just sheer honor and courtesy. This is like, you know, true like sportsmanship at its finest, where he just like tells the masked man like, no, you just take a minute, you know, rest up. Uh, so Montoya asks him just out of the blue, just the most oddball kind of question you ever heard. It's like, you wouldn't happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand. He shows him his hands, all 5, and he explains to him that the reason, like, Montoya is asking because his father was killed by a man with 6 fingers. Kind of like a old kind of detective noir type of thing, the 6-finger man. Montoya loved his father growing up, and he was well-known blacksmith, and the 6-finger man went to his father to craft him a particular sword. He tried to shortchange him. The father was like, okay, you know, you can't have this because you don't have the money. Then the 6-finger man killed his father. And of course, Montoya was 11 years old at the time. He tried to fight him, but he failed. 6-finger man left him alive, but left the 2 cuts, one on each side of his cheek. And then he swore to himself to learn swordsmanship. So when he traveled to find the 6-finger man, he'll be able to challenge him properly and win this time. And he wanted to. This is my favorite line out of the entire film, where he says, "When I meet this man, I want to say, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And it's like, it's just, I love it when the line delivery is always great, but it really hits home when he finally confronts that man in the 3rd act, and he, not only says it, but he says it repeatedly, but more vigor, and like we'll get to it, but it's just like, man, it's like, it's so well earned. It was so good. But then after like a minute of just resting a bit, the masked man was like, well, I hope someday you'll find this guy. And it's, like, Montoya's like, so you ready? Ready as I ever be. You've been more than gracious. It's like, this is so polite. And the sportsmanship is so great. And like the sword skills between, I'm pretty sure the actors probably learned some bit of sword play, because there's no doubles here. These are the actual actors sword fighting, because it's not real swords, but the skills that they were using it's like with like some, I mean, I'm not a sword fighter or a fencer or anything like that. It'd be cool to kind of learn fencing a bit, and because I already, I really want to go back, but I already learned like archery, and maybe it'd be kind of fun to actually go and learn a bit of swordsmanship. I thought that seemed like kind of out of the box kind of fun. But here it's like the way, and not even just in the same, but like overall, it almost seems like a stage play. It's the way like the surroundings look, and like the musical background. It's just like, man, just the swashbuckling aesthetics of it all, and just like you're just enamored with everything, and just the polite dialogue these two are having while sword fighting. And it's like, you are wonderful, thank you, I work hard to become so. It's like and then like they just try to show off like, I know something you don't know. Well, what's that? I'm not really left-handed. And you switch to this right hand, and like the masked man was like, well, like, surprise, I'm actually right-handed myself. And they just like, and then of course the masked man gets a one up on him. It's like yes, like, who are you? No one of any consequence. But he doesn't kill Montoya, but he just knocks him out, and then he goes after the princess. Vizzini leaves Fezzik to deal with the masked man while he runs off with the princess. And then once again, very polite, honorable thing. You know, Fezzik throws a rock, purposely missing him, because he doesn't want to like just ambush him while he's not looking. And so they decide to like duke it out with fisticuffs, and Wesley managed to put like a sleeper hold on Fezzik, which knocks him out, and he goes off to find Vizzini. For some reason, have a thing of cheese and some apples, wine, and some 2 cups, and it's like, where did this come from? Now I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh no, I always thought about it when I was watching it growing up. It's like, where do you have this these appetizers and all this other stuff coming from? Like, you just have this at the ready. So this part is my favorite scene out of the entire film. I love this part. I was just so enamored. It's kind of reminds me. I feel the same way with this. How I feel about this scene is the same way I felt by the dialogue scene in the first Jurassic Park movie when they're having lunch together and just giving their different points of view on of like the ethical quandaries of bringing 65 million year old animals in the present day and reviving them, and the problems it could cause and all that stuff. And it's like, it's how that being my favorite scene in the entire film of Jurassic Park. This is my favorite scene in the entire film of Princess Bride, where these two just banter, and it's like Masked Man challenges Vizzini to a battle of wits, and of course Vizzini accepts. It's like because he ascertained what he thinks he knows about this guy, where it's like, well, you bested my swordsman, so you're clearly skilled in steel. You bested my giant, so you're clearly physically capable. So I can pretty much like outsmart you. And the masked man presents this tube with this odorless poison, and he takes the 2 goblets of wine and secretly puts the poison in one of the goblets, and he places the goblets on the rock that they're using as a table, and he asks, okay, which cup has the poison in it? If you choose wisely, then you win and I die. If you choose wrong, well, I get the princess. And then you hear this Vizzini just rattle off this kind of like supposedly intellectual knowledge and what he ascertained, given what the masked man did up to this point. And I love like just the way Cary Elwes carries himself is like super charming, debonair, and just he oozes charm. And he just listened to this guy ranting, and he's like, you're stalling. And I know you. It's like, and of course he does like this whole childish thing. It's like, oh my god, what's that over there? What? Where? And then he switches the gobs around. because he was stating earlier, it's like, you know, like clearly, like the poison is in front of you, because you clearly thought that I would, yeah, because you would think that I wouldn't immediately choose the goblin in front of me, so you put the poison in front of you, and hoping that I would choose that one. But you knew that I knew that I was gonna do that, so you clearly gonna put the poison in front of me. This whole like back and forth, and then of course he switches the goblins around. And they both take a drink. And then Vizzini laugh his butt off, thinking like I switched the gobs when you was turned around, and he's just laughing, and then he just drops dead, and then he unties Princess Buttercup, and she was like, "Oh my God, the gobbles are really in front of you the whole time," and he points out like, "Not really. I put the poison in both cups. I built an immunity to that particular poison." So like I love that scene, just the way like the two actors is going back and forth like that. It's just the setting. It's just like, and like Buttercup is just not saying a word. She's not interjecting. It's just like these two people vying for this person and trying to like beat the other in a battle of wits. And of course it's childish at the same time as just you're enthralled by it all. It's really well done. I love this scene. But actually the first act is probably my favorite parts. It was everything after is still good, but the first entire act of The Princess Bride, by far my favorite. I thoroughly enjoyed it because I'm just invested. It hooks you immediately. And of course, Buttercup thinking like, oh, he's just another kidnapper. But then she realized, you're the Dread Pirate Roberts. You're the one who killed my dear Wesley. And of course, it's like, oh. And then of course, this is Wesley, just like, you can't tell if he's just probing her for what she did while he was gone. How faithful was she, or that kind of thing. Maybe it was a bit of that, but also it's just like messing with her a little bit too. That's how it feels to me. And you're asking her like, it's like, yeah, like I remember that boy. He didn't beg for his life or anything, like he didn't cry. He just said please. It's the please that caught me. And then Buttercup just pushes him as like, and she tells him like, I hope you drop dead, and he pushes him on the side of the hill, and he shouts, as you wish. And it's like you couldn't realize, oh my God, that's Wesley. And then for some reason she decides to tumble on the hill, roll on the hill. It's like, why would you need to roll on the hill that way? Just run. It's silly, but but as they went down the hill, Wesley explains that the Dread Pirate Roberts is like a mantle that's been passed down from one person to the next. The original Dread Pirate Roberts retired, living a life of luxury, and passed on to another person, who passed on to another person, and that person passed it on to Wesley. And of course, each one, choosing properly who will be their successor. And prior person saw something in Wesley where he's just messing with him, where it's like, it's like, every morning or like every day promising like have a good night, Wesley. I'll probably kill you in the morning. Never did it. But he ended up being teaching them about sword fighting and sailing and everything like that. Pretty much kind of like a Batman mantle kind of situation. Or Zorro in this case. And now that Wesley accomplished his goal in finding Buttercup, he will try to find another person to take up the mantle of the Dread Pirate Roberts. All the while, Prince Humperdinck and his men are, tracking down who knew that Prince Humperdinck was kind of like an expert detective, because he's like, seeing all these footprints, like, oh, there's a fight here. The loser got up and left that way. The winner followed the other bunch of footprints along that way. Oh, there was like a giant man here. He left in that direction. And it's like, wow, he is like, he's probably like, doing some serious guesswork, or he's actually some expert tracker. It's probably the one of the most like, cool qualities out of this villain. And then following eventually towards this fire swamp where Wesley was fighting off these giant rats. And Humperdinck promises Buttercup that, like, will not harm this guy, will send him on the ship on his way. Of course, he was lying. He, have his has Rugen to send him to like this torture thing he runs back at the kingdom. And Wesley notices Rugen has 6 fingers on his right hand. Rugen responds like, "There's something wrong, sir." "Oh, nothing. It's just a man who was looking for you. There was a guy looking for you." He knocks out Wesley, and he's put in this kind of very complicated looking hamster wheel thing connected to these suction cups that's on Wesley's body. Essentially, it's supposed to like suck years off your life depending on the level. Of course, Buttercup doesn't truly love anybody but Wesley, and she says if she was forced to marry Humperdinck, she will, just, off herself, and not wanting that because Humperdinck was the one who secretly hired Vizzini to do what he did, so he can be allowed to like have an excuse to go to war with his other kingdom and pretty much like conquer. So the princess's death is essential to that, but it has to be like viewed as like something they did. It had to be like, no question that he had any part of this. Matter of fact, I wore this kind of like pirate shirt for this particular thing. Dread Pirate Roberts. Fezzik eventually finds a drunk Montoya, sobers him up after he finds out about like the 6-finger man, and knowing that these two wouldn't be efficient enough to go through all those guards to get at this guy, they need to find like the masked man, which eventually they figured out, no thanks to Humperdinck, who got furious when Buttercup is not like gonna be falling for his lies anymore, and saying like, "I don't love you, I don't want anything a part of you," and all the other stuff. Feeling it's kind of like your typical bad guy who always wants what he wants, but knowing that he can't control, if it's something that's not in his control, he kind of lashes out. So he goes all the way down to the torture chamber and set like just in retaliation, he set the torture thing to its highest setting, and the screams Wesley spews can be heard all throughout the freaking kingdom, practically, which helps Fezzik and Montoya track down and at least narrow it down to the secret hideaway. I think like Rugen was a little bit surprised because Rugen wanted to test. He wanted for study about this torture thing and like what it does to a human body upon each level from the lowest setting getting up to the highest. And of course, he was kind of shocked when he just came out of nowhere and just set the thing on to his max. So eventually, Fezzik and Montoya find Wesley, thinking he's dead, but they bring him to Miracle Max, who he and his wife whip up this kind of potion or a pill format to give to Wesley because they figure like no, he's only kind of dead, and that means slightly alive. So pretty much like putting up a fight. He's not getting up. His body, his spirit. Excuse me. Spirit is still like fighting on, just for the sheer love of Buttercup. Which kind of harkens to the moment where like Wesley said, like, even death wouldn't keep us apart. Something like that. Is when after they roll down that hill. So they give Wesley this pill, which immediately revives him, but his body's taking a while before, because it's kind of numb. So it's taking a while before it like recuperates fully, so he can move around. Because I guess technically he was dead, so it's like the nerves and stuff like that is taking a moment to like start working through his system. So they need Wesley so he can like plan a proper break-in with minimum amount of fight, so they can get to at least like the core area. And they end up interrupting the wedding ceremony, which Montoya finally tracks down Rugen and chases after him. Now, of course, Rugen at a moment got a one-up on him and throws a dagger in Montoya's abdomen. But this is where I love the scene with that line where he's just out of sheer force of will and the love he has for his father, and not wanting to once again disappoint him, because he wants to finally get his revenge on the guy who took his father from him. This is Batman level kind of stuff here, where it's like, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he keeps saying that with more vigor. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he's like, stop saying that. And it's like, Montoya finally gets cuts on the bad guy, and it's like, and cuts him on his side of his cheek, and he asks like, "You'll give me what I want?" And Rugen's like, "Yes, anything." And then he takes his sword and jams it through the guy's heart, and he's just like, "I want my father back, you son of a bitch." It's like, it's so badass moment, and you guys revenge on this guy. So Wesley, after Buttercup finds him in her bed, and Humperdinck comes in, and after some, which is kind of like kind of seems easy in a way. It's probably one thing I probably did not care for again, it was like a bluff, but it was kind of like it like just worked out for him just because of the story needed to. Where it's like clearly his body still haven't fully recuperated, was getting there, but he's like, first of all, cuff your legs and your arms, uh, 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 then take out one of your eyes, and it's like all the things he said he was going to do to him, and pretty much like scare him into surrendering, but not before he forces himself up and puts up, and gets in a fighting stance. And I forgot to mention that Rugen kind of runs away from Montoya. This dude surrenders so easily, and it's like, wow, it's like these so-called bad guys are just cowardly. So Buttercup ties him up. It's never established what punishment he clearly, Buttercup will probably bring up to people about what he was doing, trying to force like a war and everything like that, using her as a pawn. Clearly he will be suffering like some kind of consequences, but they never really kind of explore that a bit. At this point, we kind of want to wrap it up on a very nice note. The same way with just having Fezzik find these 4 white horses, and they all jump down out of the window and land perfectly on these horses. And Wesley, now that he acquired what he has, he's passing on the mantle of Dread Pirate Roberts onto Montoya. And they ride off on the sunset. Wesley and Buttercup share like a nice kiss, even though at first the grandfather skips that part because earlier the grandson, was kind of gross out. But after getting super invested, he's like, I don't mind it as much. So he wants to be able to hear the complete ending in its proper, which I kind of like this part. It's like kind of shows a little bit of arc for the son. And then this, before the grandfather leaves, this grandson asks, like, will you come back and read that story for me again? And grandfather just ties it all in a nice little bow, as you wish. I love this. Even though it seems, like the little parts that I put out there, it seems kind of fast and easy. Aside from that, I mean, like, it wraps up pretty nicely. And I like to see some, like, character arcs, at least a little bit. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but at least something from the framing devices, like the grandfather and the grandson. And the grandson's learning a bit from this, like not necessarily a coming of age story, but an appreciation of, you can say like it's appreciation of reading material and like things that might not be initially in your wheelhouse, but you might end up going to like it more. You never know. But yeah, this is, like I said, one of my favorite romantic comedies ever. And it's like it's probably like at least kind of done right in a way. Sure, it might seem a bit dated, but it's like it just seems the proper way of chivalry in a way. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because I watched this on Disney Plus. I'm surprised Disney Plus had access to Princess Bride, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable film. I watched this a bunch of times as a kid. I love this. But yeah, I will see you guys. Well, I got 2 comic book reviews to do. So we'll see if we can get to that. I might have to move my Karak lore video to tomorrow because my voice isn't all the way there yet, but it should be up to snuff, you know, when I get home after work tomorrow, and then I'll put out the Karak lore video because I know I'm a little late. I want to make sure that you don't want to hear me stuffy. But I at least got to get these things out. I've been, wanting to get through this week too. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit.